Let's do some work with ratios for real. This is the real reason that we learn to do ratios. And as with other things, with algebra, this is something that I use as an adult. It really makes sense and it really works. So this is why it's important for you to know. And ratios will take you through advanced high school. My son was in advanced chemistry in, 11th grade. No, 10th grade. He took advanced chemistry. And I remember his teacher talking about how the most important thing to being able to successfully do chemistry is ratios. That was enlightening to me. I didn't know that. But it definitely impacts my teaching of ratios because I understand how important they are and how much you need to not only be able to use them and follow the rules, but to be able to understand them. Because if you can't understand them and you're just following strange rules that you don't understand, then when you have to use them in chemistry, you won't be able to figure out how to work them in because you don't understand them. So that's why it's really important to me that we spend a lot of time on ratios and that you develop a strong understanding. Let's begin. The most important thing in setting up ratios is the labels and making sure you get the labels in place, correct, so that when you write your numbers, they are in the right place. And also, when you read this, it's 40 acres per 600 bushels. It is 90 miles per 1.5 hours. Having set it up like this, it's also easier to read it because that fraction line, the fraction bar is the per. So it makes it easier to understand it and to also write your answer at the end when you have to say how many miles per hour or how many books per million or how many whatever. When you set it up, when you're finished, your answer is in that form. So you just write the top number and then per and the bottom number. Number 3, a 40-acre field yields 600 bushels of wheat. At that rate, what will a 75-acre field yield? So I set up my labels. I have acres and bushels that I'm comparing. Now I'm doing it in the correct order. It is acres for bushels, per bushels, acres per bushels. It is 440 acres yield 600 bushels of wheat. We want to know if we stay at that consistent rate. We want to know how many bushels of wheat you can get out of 75 acres. So does that mean I put 75 down here? Because it's, wait, no? Yeah, 75 goes here. And the reason I know that is because this row right up here is labeled acres. So any numbers that go up here are acres. Any numbers that go down here are bushels. So what I need to know is the number of bushels. So I'll use B for that. Now, as I've told you before, the procedure here is to cross multiply. But I really don't want to deal with numbers this big, and since I don't have to, I won't. And I encourage you not to either. Right off the bat, you can reduce both of these by 10. Boom, boom. Now you have 4 over 60. Well, 4 goes into 60. So I can reduce these by 4. 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 60, hold on, 15 times. Oh, I just reduced that to easy numbers. I'm going to rewrite what I have. So that means I have 1 acre yields 15 bushels. 75 acres yields how many bushels? So this is all the same. I guess I could put an equal sign, but I don't have to put an equal sign. This is my new ratio that I'm working with, which is consistent with that as well, by the way. So anyhow. Well, now I can easily go from here to here. 1 times what is 75? Well, my dear, 75. 1 times 75 is 75. So then 15 times 75 is what? So to find out how many bushels of wheat 75 acres will yield, I will multiply 15 times 75. 5, 6, 7. 5 times 5 is 20. Wait, 7 times 5 is 35. 7, 8, 9, 10. Let me make sure I did that right. 5 times 5 is 25, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 5 is 35, 7, 8, 9, 10. Add them up. 5, 12. Ha! We have an answer for you. 1,125. 75 acres yield 1,125 bushels of wheat. Number 4. A train travels 90 miles in 1.5 hours. How many miles will that train go in 6 hours when traveling at the same rate? That would be a hard problem to just kind of sit down and think it through and figure it out. But because of this thing called ratios and organizing it this way, this is easy to figure out. There is a method that makes sense. I feel like this format helps me make sense of that information so that I can solve it. Without this format, I would be lost. And I'm not kidding. That is the sincere, honest truth. I would not know how else to solve it. All right, so I set up my first pair of numbers, the one that I know both sets, both numbers. How many miles? So I need to know how many miles will the train go in 6 hours. So 6 goes down here, and I'll put M because it's miles, I don't know. These aren't reducible, so I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So 1.5 M, I'm going to write it up here, 1.5 M equals 90 times 6 would be 6 times 9 is 54 with 0. 540. Now I have an algebraic equation. I want to isolate the M, so I need to divide both sides by 1.5. So what I need to do is 540 divided by 105. Remember, you can't divide with a decimal in the divisor. So I'm going to make this into a whole number. To do that, I move the decimal one place. So this is 15. I'm going to write here 15. If I move the decimal here one place, then I have to move the decimal here one place. So when I do that, I get another 0. So then I have 5,400. Now I can divide it out. 15 goes into 5 0 times. It goes into 54, let's see, 15, 34, 3 times. 3 times 15 is 45. When I subtract, I get 9. Bring down the 0. 15 goes into 90, yes. Hold on. 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, nice, 6 times. Now I'm going to check it just in case. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 plus 3 is 9. Okay. It's always good to double check if you're not 100% confident. All right, so I have no remainder. I can't stop though because I still have another 0 here, so I've got to keep going. You have to have all of every digit you have here has to have a number on top. Now, if you have decimal and you're adding zeros at the end, that's different. But we're not doing that. All right, so bring down another 0. 15 goes into 0. 0 times. Now I'm done. My answer is 360. At that rate, a train will travel 360 miles in 6 hours. Number 6. The ratio of the length of a rectangle to its width is 10:7. I always like to draw pictures when we have geometry type things. Length to width. So the numbers are length to width. Length is 10, width is 7. So the ratio is 10:7. If the width of the rectangle is 70 feet, what is the length? All right, so the ratio is 10:7. If the width is 70 feet, so that would be here, then what is the length? I'm going to use a capital L. I'm not going to use a lowercase l because that looks like a 1. This is an easy one. I feel guilty for having done this one with you because this one is so easy. You don't need to cross multiply. You don't need to reduce. You don't need to do anything because look here. You can go from here to here. 7 times what is 70? Times 10. So then 10 times 10 is L. If the width is 70, then the length is 100. Just to get you started, I don't know. Number 1, if the tickets cost, what are the cost of 7 tickets? So we'll put tickets cost. There. I got you started on number 1. I feel a little bit better. Okay. On to page 18. This is essentially stuff you've already done. It's just, number 1, it's review. Number 2, it's not quite as simple as most of them. Some of them you've had, but there aren't any super easy ones in here. Okay, yeah, there are. Overall, it's not quite as easy as the ones you've done earlier. How about that? The first set, be really careful because the directions on this, the directions are different than on the second part. You have done this, but it's been a long time. It's how we started in the very beginning. Basically, we already have 2 ratios. They are complete ratios. We don't have any missing numbers. We just need to decide if they are equal or not. And the way that you do that is you cross multiply. If the product of both sides is the same, they're equal. If the product of both sides is different, then they're not equal. So the only thing that you'll write, once your final answer will be either an equal sign or an unequal sign between the 2 fractions or ratios. I'm doing C and D because both of them can be solved in different ways. And I want to make sure that you get a sample of both. This is the standard way. You multiply diagonally here. 5 times 1.6 is 6, 7, 8. I've got a decimal, so that's 8. 5 times 1.6 is 8. And that makes sense because 5 times 1 is 5. And that's more than 1, a little bit more than 1. So it's a little bit more than 5. If that were 2, it would be 10. It's less than 10. Now, 4 times 2.5. So 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. So it's going to be bigger than 8, smaller than 12. 4 times 5 is 28, 9, 10. Got 1. There we go. I like to think that through. That way I know when I do my final answer if it's reasonable or not. Assume I forgot to put my decimal and I had just 100. Would it make sense for 4 times 2.5 to be 100? Not even close. I thought it through, so I knew it needed to be bigger than 8 and smaller than 12. 100 is not that. So that is one way to confirm it. So the product of this side is 8. The product of this is 10. Therefore, this is not equal. That is my final answer. D, I should have not reduced yet, but I guess I got carried away. We have 50 60ths and 35 42seconds. 42s, 40seconds. Halves. I don't know how to say that. We'll say 40 seconds. And we need to decide if they are equivalent. Yes, we could do the cross multiplication. We could do it the same way. Those are really big numbers. And it's fine to have to multiply if that's the easiest way, if that's the best way, but that's not. The easiest way to do this is to reduce 50 60ths easily reduces by 10. You have 5 6. I'm going to write it down here. 35 42nd easily reduces by 7. 35 divided by 5. Oops. Divided by 7 is 5. Excuse me. 42 divided by 7 is 6. Do you see that they're the same? So I don't have to cross multiply to prove that they're the same. I can already see they're the same. So I know the answer to D is a flat out equal. Down to number 2. We're going to do 2 of them here. Both of them have decimals. I don't know why I feel like I have to do decimals with you. You've got the decimal thing. I feel like that you might feel a little concerned when you see the decimal, but there's nothing to be concerned about. I think mainly the reason I use decimals is because I know they can't be reduced. That's probably my main reason. I don't want you to think that decimals are somehow harder, because they're really not. So we are going back to what we typically have done, and that's to find the missing value. We have a variable, and we've got to figure out what that value is. 11/5, and this is going to be an equivalent ratio, 8.8 something. So to make sure they're equivalent, we'll cross multiply. 11 times D is 11D. 5 times 8.8 is, I don't know, I haven't done it yet. That. So let me go ahead and multiply it out. $40, 44. Have one digit to the right, so 44. So 11D equals 44. Now I have an algebraic equation. I solve for D. To get rid of the times 11, I divide by 11. That cancels out, so now I have D equals 44 divided by 11 is 4. So the value of D down here is 4. For problem D. D for D. Finally, E. Once again, this is one where we have to cross multiply. 3 times D is 3D. 4 times 2.25, I haven't figured that out yet, but I wrote it. Let me go ahead and solve that. 2.25 times 4, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9. Got 2 digits to the right, so that makes that 9. So I have 3D equals 9. To isolate the D, I will undo the times 3 by dividing by 3. D equals 3. All of these, except F and H, all the rest can be reduced. You can reduce that by 3, you can reduce that, you can reduce that, and you can reduce that by quite a bit. So make sure that you take advantage of that and you reduce those so that you have easier problems to work with. These two cannot be reduced, so on these two you'll need to actually do the whole cross multiplication. But it's not that hard because you've got smaller numbers. It's only hard when you've got big numbers. Truly, these will be easy because I'm looking at it and I realized, yeah, that's going to be, you got a 1 and a 2 you're dividing by, so those will be super easy. I should have given you, I should have done one of these with you and given you one of these. I need to think this through next time. Anyhow, you're set 17 and 18. Go you!